Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 314. Today we're going to talk about Lagoon, Land of Druids. Now this was on Kickstarter earlier this year. Plays 1 to 4 players in about 60 minutes, and you can definitely play this in about an hour once you get to know the game. This game sits in a very interesting spot. On one hand, I want to call it a Euro. On the other hand, I want to call it kind of like a Magic the Gathering idea. It's not a card game or anything. It's not a head-to-head battle game, but there are a lot of various special abilities that you can manipulate, change up the game quite drastically. And so this got that aspect of it, combined with sort of a tile placement, like an area control, but not really. It has a lot of elements that you might find in a traditional like train game, like a stock game even. And there's a lot of sort of underpinnings of politics, and you might emerge and have like an alliance, with you and Billy. You might have an alliance a little bit through the beginning of the game, kind of working to control which element or which power is going to emerge and be the dominant power in the land of Lagoon. And the alliance may go away and may come back. So there's a lot of elements working here, but at the same time, the game is very dirt simple to play. You've got a couple of basic actions, and then you've got a lot of actions that you can do based on the tiles that you place. But even those are not really the driving force of the game. It's this power struggle of the different elements that are available in the game. So let's jump into how the game works a little bit, and I'll kind of give you some more of my thoughts on it. The game takes place in the land of Lagoon, and this is an extremely high fantasy world. This isn't your typical dwarves and elves and orcs and all that kind of stuff. The game is going to be made up of various locations, made up of these very otherworldly tiles, almost archetypal. Players will choose one of the 4 different druid paths. There's actually 8 different colors, but players can choose one of the 2 colors in the path that they have. The game comes with 4 player aids, each with a different back, matching one of the druid paths in the game. And these player aids give you all that you need to know to play this game. Each game is going to start with a different setup. What you see here is sort of the basic setup in the game. You'll notice there are 3 locations here, one for each of the 3 energies in the game. There's yellow, red, and blue energy. And players are trying to get behind the energy that's going to be dominant. Now the dominant energy is decided by whichever color tiles are most present on the board at the end of the game. Throughout the game, players will be taking explore actions, adding tiles, and also collecting seed tokens matching each of the energy types. Players are also going to be able to unravel tiles, and when you unravel a tile, you effectively destroy that tile and then take it and keep it in your supply for scoring at the end of the game. The game comes with 27 of these tiles, and each of these is actually double-sided with a different effect that you're going to be able to activate and manipulate for your benefit to win the game. Now the way that you win the game is you take a look at the board, and let's say yellow was the dominant energy. So each yellow seed token that you have is worth 1 point. Each red and blue tile that you have is actually going to be worth 2 points. And this is really the main part of the game. Now you have some very basic actions which I'll talk about, and then you have a huge variety of effects that are going to happen and be able to be activated on each tile. But how the colors come out, which tokens players start to collect, which tiles seem to be dominant towards the beginning and middle of the game, players will start kind of backing a certain color. And so you have kind of a choice. So if I see Billy kind of going red, let's say he's got some red tokens, he's unraveled a blue location, so he's kind of putting his money behind red. Well, I can try to catch up with him and race to that if I feel like he's in a very good position. Or I can take steps to switch that and start to unravel red tiles, start to collect other color tokens. And sometimes you'll have a game where it very quickly will become apparent which is going to be the dominant color, or which is going to at least have a very good shot at being a dominant color, and the game will quickly turn into a race. On the other hand, you're going to have some games where players are a little bit more cautious, play a little bit more conservative, wait for things to kind of happen and then make a stab at a particular color. So that's really one of the most interesting parts about the game, is that whole level of brinkmanship. And like I talked about earlier about alliances, where me and you, okay good, we're on the same page here, we're working blue, and then, okay, I'm going to switch over to yellow because I see the other player is, he's doing really well, and it's going to be better for me because I've already unraveled some red tiles or something, so I can switch gears better and then try to catch up to him in that way. So that is really the crux of the game, but underneath all of that are all these special abilities and things like that. And the addition that I have comes with wooden pieces for the druids and the energy tokens. The retail version is going to come with cardboard tokens for all of these, but those cardboard tokens are again going to be very thick and very high quality. To start the game, players are going to put their elder druid and one of their regular druids onto the haven. Now, the rules give you a variety of ways to set up the game. There's always going to be a haven in the starting setup, and more havens will come out through drawing tiles, and havens are places where you're going to summon new druids to come in, enter the board, and then move around from there. And havens are denoted by this kind of little swirly icon you can see here. Each player has one elder druid, and that has the little star, and the token is a little bit bigger than your normal druids. On a player's turn, they're going to be activating druids and performing a variety of either basic actions or actions dictated by the tiles that are on the board. There's 3 basic actions that a druid can always do. And the first one is to move. You exhaust a druid and then move that druid 1 adjacent hex. The next basic action is you can summon a druid exhausted to any haven, and that is simply done by exhausting any druid anywhere and then putting out a new druid exhausted into any of the havens available on the board. Finally, the last basic action is exploring. Now, you can only do this once per turn, but you simply exhaust your druid, draw one of the tiles out of the bag, and then you flip it over and figure out which side you want to put out, make the decision, and then put it adjacent to the location you were exploring from. And then you have the choice of moving your exhausted druid to that tile. And then based on the color that you laid down, you're going to take a seed token matching the color that you selected. There's one more standard action that all druids can do, and that's the unravel action. That's the most important action by far in the game. Before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the site actions. Now, as I've stated previously, there's going to be a variety of locations with a ton of different actions available. Let's take a look at an example here of a site action. Now here you can see 2 druids. One of them is our Eldred or Elder Druid, and we have an exhausted regular druid on the Eye of the Forest. Now, to activate a site action, you don't need the refreshed druid on that site itself. You just need a druid there, and our Elder Druid in this case could be anywhere on the board. Now, to do this, we can exhaust the Elder Druid, and that's what that little symbol there means on the Eye of the Forest. Exhaust your Eldred, move the invoking Eldred to any site. So even though the Eldred's not on the site, as long as we have a druid there, we have access to that ability. And in this case, we can exhaust the Elder Druid and then move him anywhere that we wish. So this is the second element of the game that I really enjoy. You have a lot of interesting, sort of intricate web of combos that can happen in the game, and there's a lot to really be aware of and keep cognizant of what other players are trying to do, because again, you don't need to have that druid on the site itself. You just need a guy right there so that you can do this. And sometimes you'll have abilities that allow you to refresh or bring in druids and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and so you've really got to be aware of that. And as you play the game a few times, you're going to start to see, oh, okay, he's setting himself up so he can get over here and unravel very quickly, these sites for himself or whatever it might be, or get out, a lot of druids very, very quickly. Finally, the last action is the unravel action. And again, this is by far the most important action of the game. If we take a look at the player aid, you can see a little bit of how the balance of power works. So if you want to unravel a yellow site, it requires 3 blue energy. If you want to unravel a red site, it requires 3 yellow energy, and so forth. Now, this is kind of like a rock, paper, scissors idea here. And this wheel of power is also indicated on each of the player tokens. And it also has this kind of wheel of power here to see that yellow beats red, red beats blue, and blue beats yellow. So in this example, we want to unravel a blue location. Well, to unravel a blue location, we need 3 red energy. So you just need to have 3 of your druids on 3 separate red locations. Now we can see here we only have druids on 2 separate red locations. You can make up the difference by discarding red seed tokens. So in this case we'll discard a red seed token to act as our 3rd energy. Then we're able to unravel the blue location, take it, and keep it in our score pile. And that's how you unravel a location. Players will keep playing until all of the tiles in the bag have been exhausted. At that point, you're going to figure out which is the dominant energy and then score from there. So that's the basic gist of how you play the game. Now, there's a lot of reasons I really enjoy this game. So first, let's talk about, production and components. Everything is very thick, well made, excellently illustrated. The game looks gorgeous when you get out on the table. You can look at the tiles, you can see the font is huge, very readable, very clear font. And even if you didn't get the Kickstarter edition and get the cool wooden components, well, the basic cardboard components that come with it are super extra thick. So, there's no reason you should feel disappointed if that's what you got. So let's talk gameplay and player count. Now the gameplay is 1 through 4. I haven't played it solitaire. Frankly, don't really have the desire because I feel like I'd be missing a key element of the game, and that's sort of this alliance idea. Now, my favorite way to play the game, I think, is with 4 players. Now with 4, you actually play in teams, 2 teams of 2. And you can set up yourself and your opponent to, key off and cordon off certain areas based on how the tiles come out, and sort of keeping certain colors away from, the other player is something that you can do in this game. Now, I've only played it the one time and it was really, really fun. I do like it as a 2 and a 3 player game. I think my favorite, if I just had to kind of hazard, I guess would be 4, then 3, then 2. Now with 3, you have that temporary alliance aspect really kind of come out in fruition, and you've got to be very kind of on a knife's edge and be very wary of what everybody else is doing, and they may switch, gears on you and kind of really hose you over. Now 2 players also interesting for some other reasons, where it's like you don't want to let somebody get too far ahead in a certain color and be able to really start driving and dictating the game. You got to stay close enough to them that, okay, if things don't go your way with the tile draw and stuff like that, you can still be within striking distance to, surpass them with however the game is developing. But if you see an opportunity to switch gears on them, then, then you can really, take a stab at switching the dominant color. And like I said, the game is very cool because you just don't see games like this. There's no point conversion, there's no resource conversion, it's not an area control game per se. It's very much like a stock game. I mean, I feel like I'm backing yellow, I'm backing red, and the value of red and yellow and blue is going up and down based on what the players are doing. But then you kind of layer on a bunch of this kind of Magic the Gathering type stuff. I mean, you can move whole tiles around, you can swap tiles, you can move druids, you can exile your druids off the board to do, really big effects. So now you've got to summon them or bring them back out later. I mean, that's something a lot of people do at the beginning of the game is you summon a bunch of druids, you get a lot more actions and things. And I just remembered, I forgot to say, at the beginning of your turn, you can only refresh 3 of your druids. So if you have all 5 of your druids out there, including your Eldred, you're not always going to be able to do all of them. So based on the proximity, where they're at on the board, you'd be like, well, he's not so important. He's kind of down off in this corner. I don't really need to worry about that right now. I've got this cool combo set up. On the next turn, so I'll refresh these 3 and do that. But there are abilities that allow you to refresh more than 3 druids and stuff. So this is a game, I would say, I think at the end of the day, it's something I think everybody should try. Because it doesn't really fit, you go like, oh, it's a Euro. Yes, I'd say it's more of a Euro than anything else, but, wow, I mean, what a broad category that really is if you take a step back and look at everything that's been happening. So this doesn't match anything. This does not match a single thing in my whole collection at all. So I would say this is something you got to try. You got to try it more than once, because you're going to see a game and you're going to be just learning the game. You're like, oh, I got totally hosed because I wasn't on my toes, and Billy and Joey, they totally ran away with the game and it was just between them, or vice versa. So this is a game I think everybody really needs to try. I can't stress that enough. So that is Lagoon. I want to sit down and play it again now that I've just talked about it. So anyway, take care. Thanks.